All right, let's talk about Michael Penix Jr. of the Atlanta Falcons, a guy who only really played in 3 games last year. If you remember, Kirk Cousins was, started off the season pretty well, really struggled down the stretch, and there's a lot of talk about, why are they still playing Cousins at this point? Why not move on and play Penix? Eventually, the playoffs were in, at one point felt like it was a given. Then it became a tight spot. Are they going to make the playoffs or not? They decided to, make a move and go with Michael Penix Jr. And he played well. Let's get into it. How well did he play, and what do we feel about him moving forward? Again, a guy who essentially played in 3 games. Let's start off with the play you see on your screen, which was, I think really one of the main things I liked about Penix, and part of why I never really understood the idea of sitting him for a couple years, which was the plan for Atlanta. You see right here, so first it's zone coverage, and you have a receiver running a deeper route that can hopefully take away the safety. They'll then have Drake London, who's in motion, run towards the sideline, hopefully get to where that safety now isn't because he's been taken away, and there could be a window. That's what we're hoping happens if you're an Atlanta Falcons fan. So Penix takes a snap, he runs a play action, is going to ultimately look on this side of the field, and a couple things to note. Both of these receivers kind of look open, but neither actually is. First, Drake London, the route that usually is the one you want to look towards here, he has stepped out of bounds, so can't make that throw. Okay, that's unfortunate. You could try for the other receiver, but there isn't really a clear pathway. Again, if you had a Jerome and we're just dropping the ball over, from above, you'd be able to make it work, but you have to get it from where Penix is standing, and there isn't really an angle to do that because linebackers are in the way. So Penix reads this quickly and instead gets it to the halfback, which doesn't amount to a ton, only about a yard or two, but it was the correct play, right? And that's what you like about Michael Penix, is he makes the correct play consistently. Penix is an older prospect. He's 1 year younger than Jalen Hurts, right? He's 25 years old. So, you kind of expect him to be a bit more of a NFL-ready player, but that's what we saw from him, I thought, was pretty NFL-ready. There were some young player mistakes, some getting used to the NFL type of mistakes. Something like this, for example, this is going to be a man coverage concept. So this was actually very early on in that Washington game, which I'm taking, I think all of the film we're going to talk about today I took from this specific game. And this was a huge game. If the Falcons were able to pull off the upset victory in this game, it would have essentially made it really likely they would have made the playoffs. But with a loss, it would make it very difficult to make the playoffs, and it's on the road, so that's not easy. And so Penix takes a snap, again, very early on in this game. He looks right here. He has a receiver who, the defender has his back turned, so you get why Penix wants to look in this direction. And quite frankly, there's no other way to put this. This is just a miscommunication. Penix throws outside the numbers, but the receiver cuts more over the middle, which results in an interception. Good defensive play by Washington to read it and get the interception. But ultimately, this was a bad mistake by the Falcons. And I don't know if this was Penix's fault or the receiver's fault. Part of me just has to feel like this is the issue of having a quarterback who's primarily taking second team reps for the entirety of the year now come in a huge game on the road. You're going to get some of these miscommunications. It's just going to happen. Unfortunate, though, that this one resulted in an interception. There was also just some timing things that you just hope you can get right. So this play, it's actually Bijan Robinson who's going to run a double move here on the outside. Okay, interestingly enough, that's interesting enough. Let's see what happens. Well, when this play begins, it's actually a really good move. I mean, you see that the defender really got bit on that fake, and there is an opportunity for a perfect throw to potentially result in a touchdown here. However, again, these are players that haven't played a ton together, and you're going to see the timing and the connection just a bit off right here. If that was right on, like I said, could have potentially been a touchdown. At the very least, could have been a big gain. Now, you expect these things to get fixed with a full, season of training camp together. So these are negatives that happened last year, but these to me are not long-term negatives at all. Yes, they're things you have to fix, and it is true that sometimes you can never get this down. That is a thing that happens. I think about DJ Moore and Caleb Williams last year, who early on didn't have much chemistry, and we all kind of said, okay, well, that'll fix itself, and then it just kind of never did. That does happen, but to me, with such a small sample size, I'm just going to assume it'll get better, and maybe I'll be wrong, but we'll see. I would at least lean towards that kind of stuff we'll get out of his game next season, if not right away, at least, towards the end of next season. And also, like, he just made some really good throws. Like this one, it's going to be a zone coverage concept. You have a receiver trying to get sort of right in the middle. It's tough play, right? I mean, there's two safeties over the middle. There's going to be a linebacker who's going to be staying further deep. Like it's tough to try and make this window work. However, Penix takes the snap. He looks over and says, I don't know. I was billed as a guy who had a great deep ball. Let's see if I can make it work at the NFL level. Again, this is hard, right? There is not a big window, and you're going to have to get the ball there in a hurry. And does this play work? No, but watch how it doesn't work. I mean, it's a great throw that just couldn't quite work. Again, you could sit here and argue, oh, that's a hospital ball if you want to, maybe. But again, you're trying to play to make the playoffs. You got to sometimes do that. You got to, have your receiver take a hit to get a big gain. Unfortunately, though, just didn't quite work out that time. But still, the throw itself, the ball placement, getting the ball there quickly, that's great stuff, right? And the fact that he can do that is why you look at him and say, yeah, I think this guy's probably going to work at the next level. And he does other things well, too. Like, for example, right here, you're going to see that he's going to, on this play, the concept itself is run a play action, roll out towards the top of the screen. You have other routes going in that direction. However, this play is going to kind of get disrupted because once Penix takes the snap, you see that pressure comes right along the edge. So now, okay, can't really fully run this play the way you want to. The over-the-middle route tends to be the one you like to look towards here. Can't make that happen. However, Penix still managed to get the ball out of his hands and nearly had a completion there as well. There's also a penalty due to the how he got hit on that play. But ultimately, it's a good job to, again, minimize damage. That's something I always talk about when it comes to quarterbacks, is damage minimization can be so important. If you're about to get sacked, can you turn it into a gain of 0 instead of a loss of 7? We saw him kind of earlier find a way to get a couple yards on a play that could have had something bad happen. Like, young quarterbacks can often really struggle with that. In college, they usually are, every play works out, and they don't like how in the NFL, less plays work out. Penix seemingly gets the NFL game, and that's ultimately maybe my favorite thing about him. So, yeah, I mean, ultimately for Michael Penix Jr., like, is he a perfect player? No, but it'd be weird if he was. He just started playing football. So I do think that, just the physical traits in general are good, but I also think it's good to see how kind of NFL ready he already is. I know that a lot of times people don't really value that stuff as much because they just figure, well, you can learn how to read a defense, in the NFL, but people don't always do that. And the fact that he already knows how to do certain things, the fact that he can make a throw under pressure, where we saw how much Cousins struggled with that last year, seeing Penix be able to at least do an okay job at it, it made things way better. And again, going from one end of the spectrum to the other with Cousins, but still, you just saw the Falcons' offense look much better once Penix, showed up. And I do think next year we could see him do some really nice things. So, yeah, those are kind of my thoughts on Michael Penix Jr. as a whole. What are yours? Let me know in the comments below. Always love hearing from y'all. And of course, as always, thanks for watching.